Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Margo Lovett, author of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Margo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
Are you ready to get started?
Yes, indeed, I am.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
My advice to them is to decide why you're writing that book, because there's going to be days when you just don't feel like it. You feel as though nobody's going to want to buy your book. Who wants to listen to what you're saying? So you can always lean back on your why. So start out with your why. It will keep your feet going, keep you moving in the right direction. And if I can, you ask, can I add one other piece to it?
Yeah.
Decide why and then just do it. Get on that path of consistency, because the last thing you want to do, don't do like I did, get started and then put it on the shelf and say, let life get in the way. And next thing you know, a month has gone by, 2 months have gone by, when people are really waiting to hear your story. So determine what your why is and then just do it. Do it consistently, write consistently until you have your book out there.
And one of the stories that I share with my clients and also with our podcast, everything else, is it took me 4 years to get my first book done. And it was based on a health crisis I had back 2011. I was around 340 pounds, borderline type 2 diabetic, high blood pressure. Doctor straight up told me if I don't get my act together, I'm dead in 5 years. So lost 60 pounds, kept the weight off, which that's the biggest challenge. It's not losing the weight, it's keeping the weight off. And I wanted to share this story, not only the triumph, but also the struggles, all the things that you have to deal with, battling your demons and all those challenges. So finally, 4 years later, I got the book done. Then I had to learn everything about publishing and marketing, and fortunately became my first of 13 bestsellers. But the whole thing with that is I could have had that book out there 4 years previous. And the fact is I just kept putting the book off, or I didn't know about publishing, or I didn't know about marketing. And I always kind of found that excuse. And I came to realize I'm just wasting 4 years of my life. I want to get this story out there. And that's the biggest thing I tell our listeners is don't be afraid to take the plunge. Don't wait 4 years. Don't wait a year. Start on that book. Start in a Microsoft Word file or use Rev Audio. Just somehow get that book out there. Whether you're speaking the book out, whether you're writing the book, just do it and get started.
You're so right about that. And speaking of speaking, I found it to really work for me to just have my recording, and that's what I did. I didn't have anything in my hand. I just had an idea about each chapter, and I just spoke and sent it to a transcriber, went through everything, and that's how I started laying down the bones. And it took some of the pain out of really being authentic and really telling your truth. So, and congratulations to you, because I know that you helped a lot of people just telling your truth. So congratulations. That's a good thing, Paul.
Well, and that was the biggest thing. My philosophy was if I can just help one person with this book, unfortunately we were able to help many people with it. But the fact is that we can help people. That's what's more gratifying than anything. The business side and everything else, that will take care of itself. But just going out there and having that philosophy to help people and to make a difference, you go with that mentality, everything else will take care of itself.
Oh, you're right. You're right. And start out with that mentality, and it will guide you also as you're crafting your book, because you automatically understand it's the story's larger than you. At first, yes, it's your story, but your truth really belongs to somebody else, and somebody's going to see themselves in each and every word that you put on that paper. So, yeah. Paul, can I ask you a question? What about mindset starting out? I found that I really had to get my why together, and that connected me to my mindset to even write. So, you have to connect the two. That's what I found.
I think the main thing is just getting started. And the first thing is open up that Word file or turn on the Rev Audio app and just pushing the button and
Mm.
just getting started. Think about 10 talking points and then just start talking about them. And if you don't want to talk about them in order, then talk about the one talking point that you're most passionate about. And it's going to come out. The creative process will come to you. You just have to take the first couple steps.
Yes. So true. So true.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part, and once you cross that hurdle of actually doing it, you have something tangible and you're ready. I think the hardest part of getting published is now what? Do I self-publish?
Mm-hmm.
Do I take it to a publisher? And there's so many people that say, "Hey, I can get your book published. I can do this, I can do that." A lot of people have stellar reputations, some not so good. Some people are on nationwide TV late at night.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you go to? I think that's the next thing. That's the hardest part of, okay, I have this book. Now what's next? What's the best way for me to even get published?
Well, one of the biggest things with that too is there's one question that I always recommend to potential clients and to listeners of the show, and that is when you are talking to people that could potentially help you, whether that's traditional big five, whether that's a hybrid publisher like myself, or even some of these gurus that you see on Facebook that
Mhm.
are typically college dropouts are going to promise you the moon and the stars, just being blunt. And the reason
Mhm.
I say that is ask them what their core values are. And if they can't answer that question within 5 seconds, then I think you know your answer. And that's one
Okay.
of the biggest things. Anytime I work with a strategic partner, or when we're entering business ventures, or even when I'm talking to my own clients, I'm asking, what are your core values? What are the things that you want to accomplish? Because I think if you can't answer that question within 5 seconds, then you know your answer to that question real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and that's a good guideline for anybody that you're really, when you're talking about taking on a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
strategist, that's a guideline that we all should follow. I agree.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
You know what, Paul? I just talked about the book. I talked about the book before, after I discovered my why, and I said, okay, I'm doing this. I told everybody, all my friends, all my family. I was all on Facebook. I had my podcast was up and running by that time. I just talked about the book. And everybody knew how passionate I was and how I left corporate. I simply quit after 26 years. And a lot of people wanted to understand the mentality behind actually doing that. So in everything, the biggest thing was word of mouth. Did I sell 2,000 out of the back copies out of the back of my trunk? No, I didn't. But I got to Amazon bestseller in one day because everybody understood how I felt about this book, and they knew to even go the all the way was huge for me. And I get excited about what I do, and if I'm going to do it, I'm all in and I talk about it day and night. So that was my best marketing strategy, and it is even to this day.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is what I learned from one of my mentors was it's your passion that sells. It's your
Mm,
enthusiasm that you have for your book or whatever product that you're promoting. People can see that. And if you believe in your product, you can sell it easily because people are going to see your passion, your enthusiasm, and they're going to want to be part of that journey.
that's true. Oh man. And you can't fake that.
No.
People understand that you're not faking that. This is real. They that person put their heart and their soul and everything into it. And when you tell them there's no fluff there, it's just everything is just true. Step by step by step. The ideas, the thoughts, it's all there. Yeah, it comes through. It really, really does. And you know what? I love that. I look for that when people are talking about their books. Some people just put out a slew of books, and so what, so what, so what. But I had a chance to talk to somebody yesterday, and we it was supposed to be a conversation in passing. He's another author, traveled 15 different states so that he could get some information about what's going on in our neighborhoods and our cities. And I could just feel the passion. I bought the book right away because, first of all, he wrote it in workbook form, and I'm almost finished with it already. But his passion and how he has webinars going on, he's teaching this what's going on. It was very contagious, and I'm glad that I bought the book. And I thought, wow, that's the way you talk about your book. That's how you present it to people. Make them want to buy it right there on the spot. That's if you're not happy about it, who else will be? Seriously.
Well, speaking of books, now I'm going to ask you the hardest question, and that is, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Wow, when I knew that you were going to ask that question, that is a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. But I must say, there's a book, Woven into the Fabric by Sahai Isabel Farrell, self-published book. But when I heard her story, how she was at Stanford University and had a chance to become a part of a beauty pageant, she actually won. This is a true story that goes side by side with a biblical concept. But she won. And she was supposed to go to 5 different countries in Africa. The very first country she went to, she had an audience with the emperor, and the emperor he invited her to come back the next day. Her entourage, her people said yes, she could come back the next day. Little did she know, she gets introduced to the emperor's grandson. They have a whirlwind um, romance and courtship, and she comes back to the States just to get prepared because they are engaged at this point. I'm as she's telling me the story, and as I see her mapping it out in her book, I'm thinking, oh my God. Long story short, that's what became one of my favorite books because it tells me two things. It tells me that you have to keep reaching. You never know what's ahead for you. Watch the opportunities that come because they don't just happen. And the final thing is when something is presented to you and you determine that this is your opportunity, you grab it, you take it because that's how you reinvent yourself. That's how you keep moving. That's how you keep living. Now, had the coup not taken place in Ethiopia, she would have been queen. Grandson was next in line for the rulership, but it didn't happen that way. But to think she did that. She took that opportunity. She said yes to being a part of that beauty pageant. She said yes to returning the next day to meet the emperor's surprise. She said yes to being a part of that royal family. They were about to make history. Really, and I just keep coming back to that. So it's not a business book, but it's my book. I took it on and I had a chance to meet that amazing author, and I tell you, I keep seeing. Ah, be careful about the opportunities that you turn down and
Mm-hmm.
the ones that you don't fully embrace because you really don't know. And she said her life was never the same, never. And she's been back to Ethiopia a couple of times. So that's my favorite book.
Well, I think that is an excellent choice. And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I did not come this far just to come this far. And that is my mantra. That is my favorite quote because it's true. It's my truth. I've walked over a lot of trees and past a lot of growling bears to get to this place today. And I know that there's more for me to do in this life. There are more people to impact, there are more books to write. I know that there are more people to interview. There is a, oh my God, so much more life. I did not come this far just to come this far. It's a I just feel it in my bones every time I realize that's my favorite saying. It keeps me moving forward. It gives me insight, but it grounds me also. So that's my favorite saying.
Well, Margo, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I have a website, well, actually, a landing page. It's www.herbusinesshervoice.com. My book is there, gives you some background concerning myself, and gives you an opportunity to sign up for my newsletter. And it comes out once a week. It really is a breakdown on the show and my takeaways from my guests. So, herbusinesshervoice.com.
Margo, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author
Thank
journey
you,
ahead.
Paul. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this opportunity. Bye bye now.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.